Ayin Aleph. Yesterday was the yahrzeit of Meir Shapiro, the initiator of the Daf Yomi. Today is the shloshim of my father. So we're learning the Nishmas of David Nachman ben Moshe ben Yechavet Shifra. After that, Ayin Aleph, Amid Aleph. The two dots were about 10 lines from the top of the page. And we were learning in the Mishnah that Bavel is the purest place in the world. According to Rabbi Lezer, everything was taken out of Bavel. He made it like soyless Nakia. Perfect, fine. Flour. Abai didn't necessarily agree that everybody went because he said there were only volunteers, so most people went. And so we said that the rest of the world compared to Eretz Yisrael is not so pure, and therefore the rest of the world you have to do your proper investigations. Eretz Yisrael less so. And Bavel, you don't need to do anybody because any investigation, because everybody there you can rest assured is 100% kosher. So the Gemara, some of the people in Israel had a hard time with this Gemara. So let's see what happens. It says the Gemara, Gufa, Omar Avida Mishmuel, Abuza Mishmuel, Kol Arot says Isel Yisrael, Yisrael, Isel Bavel. That all the countries compared to Yisrael are considered dough, a mixture of all kinds of different ingredients. You have to check it out. And Yisrael is Isa compared to Bavel. Bavel is the purest place. The May Rebbe, so this is years later, in the times of Rebbe, Bikshu Lasses Bavel Isel Yisrael. The people that stood up said enough. How could it be that Eretz Yisrael should be inferior to Bavel? It should be the other way around. Bavel should be inferior to Eretz Yisrael. So Rebbe said to them, now Rebbe's ancestors come from Bavel. Rebbe comes from Hillel. If you remember that when they had the whole issue about Pesach falling out on Shabbos and Bnei Pesach didn't know what to do, they brought down Hillel from Bavel and then he became the Nasi. And the rest is history. So Amalek, he said to them, you want to put thorns in my eyes? You know what? Let the Chacham deal with you because I'm like a negay bedover. So therefore, and we had before in the Gemara, if Bam Maisa and then, if there's a Shaila, then you go and give psakim, we think that you're tainted. So talk to Rabbi Chanina Bar Chama. But I'm not happy with this new agenda that you people have. He said to them, I've heard from Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yossi, who said in the name of his father, Kol Arot says Isel et Yisrael, Ve'ed Yisrael Isel Bavel. Don't think it's Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel said this. No, you're going to say, who said this? Rabbi Yehuda, Shmuel, they're all from Bavel. So of course they're going to defend Bavel. They're going to promote Bavel. No, it was said by Rabbi Yossi Shmuel, who was living in Yisrael, and he also said that Bavel is superior to Yisrael when it comes to yichus, the pedigree and lineage. Says the Gemara, the made Rabbi Pinchas, at times that Pinchas, I'm not exactly sure which of Pinchas this is or which area this is. Bikshu, La says Bavel East like Yisrael. Amalahem, he said to them, La Vadav to his servants. They want to change the things, the status around, and make Yisrael purer and Bavel inferior. So he said to them, I'm going to go to Beis Medrash and I'm going to give two psakim. I know that if I'm going to go ahead and say that Eretz Yisrael is inferior to Bavel, the rabbi are going to say, prove it. Which families are tainted? Which families have shilas of mamzedim and all? And the moment I have to start naming families, you know how many enemies I'm going to create? I don't want to be in that position. I want to talk in general, but they're going to want to know, show me, bring me some proof. So this is my strategy. I'm going to say two dinim. And I want you, Tuluni Barisa, carry me in a bed. And the moment I finish, let's run for our lives. Imagine this is whoever Pinchas is. Obviously, he was a big rogue. Ki Ayil, when he went into the shul, Amalam, the first thing he said to them, he decided to throw them a real doozy, something that out of left field, and they're going to be so perturbed by it, and they're going to be so involved and engaged in trying to understand it. When he says the second thing, they won't even realize what he's saying. So the first thing he said to them is, you know what, Ma'ateda, you don't have to shech the bird. Teda was a vachta by animals, but doesn't say anywhere by birds. And he didn't explain to them why. So therefore, as soon as he said no shechita by birds, they also, chicken and all that, they all started to say, what's going on over here? Why don't you? And what's the reason? And we learn from a pasuk, they're gonna talk about that, right? That's quite out of left field. At the Yasri Kamayin, but while they're sitting there and they're analyzing it, Amaluhu, he rabbi threw in at them, Kol Arot he said to Yisrael, Isel Bavel, Yisrael is inferior to Bavel. And right away, Notlu Barisa Verochu. They put him in this bed. I mean, just picture the scene there. And they fled. Verochu Achrav. The Talmud ran after him. And they wanted to know what's going on here. Which family? Prove it. They couldn't catch up to them. Yoshu Botku, so they sat down themselves and, well, let's see, which family do we know that maybe there's a chash of a mamzer or something like that. And Hachigila Sakana, they start realizing that one of the most prominent families in Yisrael, there's a suffix, a mamzer went mixed in the family. Nobody remembers who it is, what it is. And they realize if they're going to mefarsim it, their lives will be in danger. Pretty sure they also walked away. They stopped talking about the subject. Rabbi Yochanan said, I mean, who is a Bitzchak ben Pinchas? Okay, fine. Rabbi Yochanan said, hey, Bubba was Ezra, and here we're talking about the times of Rebbe. So you're talking now, Ezra was the beginning of the second base of Mikdash. Rebbe was 100 and something years after the second base of Mikdash. You're talking about 500 years later, and they somehow or another were able to maintain that ethnicity. They were able to maintain that pedigree, the lineage that should be clear, and which is amazing. 500 years. You would think it's only that one generation, and that's it. They continued it. Says the Gemara, that I swear, and hey, it's an interesting expression. I'm swearing in the Eibush. Sometimes we swear in the Eibush. Here it says Heichola to the Kedusha of the Eibush, the Heichel of the Eibush. That b'yadeinu really, I can announce all the families in Israel that have shilas in them. What should I do? Some of the G'dolei Hadoy come from these families. And I don't want to cast any aspersion. In other words, there's a family that we know Mamza married one of the girls in the family. We don't know which girl. We don't know who the children of that Mamza is. That's called a mishpacha that became nikmu, that got mixed in. Don't worry about fasting it because we might be denigrating people for no reason. So let's just leave it alone. So Savlok Rabbi Yitzchak. This follows the Svar Rabbi Yitzchak. The Rabbi Yitzchak said on top of the page that the Eibush did a tzedakah, right? Magisha mincha b'tzedakah. He did a tzedakah that watch shemishpacha shenitma nitma. A family that once the moms or whatever got mixed in the family and no one knows exactly who it is, then leave it alone. Forget about it. Something more right. No, but it's not our duty to go ahead and keep on programming. Leave it alone. And because Mashiach will come, Eliyahu won't probe either. It'll become totally acceptable. That the Tamein themselves will transform into Tahidim. Because if they remain Tamei, then Eliyahu will come and he'll the Rochad Kard, but here he won't, because they themselves will be transformed. Like the pasuk we said on top of the page, the Yoshev Mitzad of Mitai Kesef. Not that they can get rid of all the bad. One way of learning is you take out all the impurities and you maintain the silver. That means that we will be Megala what the impurities are. He's saying no. The Rabbi Yitzchak came along and said the pshat is that the impurities themselves will become pure. That keeping the nitma. That once they're there, they are there. And that's what the Machlek Shema Levi on top of the page. The other one is whether we say that the impurities become pure or the impurities will be removed, separated. We actually learned Mishpachas Beis Hatzrifa Hoyse Beber Yarden. There's a family called Beis Hatzrifa on the other side of the Yarden, and there was a man called Ben Tzir. So he had this name Ben Tzir. Obviously, it's quite an old name. And this man Ben Tzir, who was a very strong person, what happened was it was basically Ben Tzir Bezroya. The way we learned the Gemara is that this family was a good family, and this Ben Tzir was not a good person. And he forcibly he made accusations, allegations that his family is no good. There's a blight. There's some kind of a flaw in that family. Leave them alone. Don't. And he was menaching them. There's another family that were bad. The Kirva Ben Tzim Bezroya, and Ben Tzim brought them closer. And he said, "Yeah, everybody can marry them." And Rashi Ben Tzim was Adam Chashuv, the Ish Zeroya, but he did the wrong thing. Going Elu, in this case, Eliyahu ba letame uletayr lerachik uletkarev. Eliyahu will come along and will tell us who was right and who was wrong. And going Elu the Yodin. That's because we know the families. Because we know the families, who is possible and who is this, then Eliyahu will come and separate the bad from the good. But if we sort of don't really know anything about them, because we don't know that it's possible the nitma. So according to this, going Elu Yodin, so this opinion holds that if we know for sure there's a mamza there, we just don't know who it is, Eliyahu will come and take it out. If it's sort of forgotten over time, they become transformed into Torah. Now, interesting. It says the name of the family that were good, which is based on tzrifa, but it doesn't name the family that was bad. No, let it be forgotten. Let it sort of let it be forgotten. Or by the time Rebbe wrote his Braisa, it was already forgotten, so therefore he had no right to mefarsim it. There's another family that Chachamim did not want to be begale. So again, if it's sort of forgotten by the masses, you have no right to be begale. But the Chachamim would pass it on to their own family to be machmed. Don't that family, leave that out, leave them alone. Once every 7 years. I'm not say twice every 7 years. No, just for their own family, but not too often. Just once in 7 years, and that was it. So that we should keep away. But you're not allowed to be mefarsim. It makes more sense to say once every 7 years, which means mamish is almost forgotten. To the Tanya, we find something very similar. If you want something to be forgotten, let's say if a guy says, "I'll be a nozir if I don't reveal who this family is that has something mamish, whatever it is." And now being a nozir, we learned before, according to one opinion, is actually not a good thing, right? She's atzim and ayayin and so on and so forth. If three carbon chatas, so what should you do? Year Nazir, better take on an Azidus and do that thing which is slightly wrong than to be Megala and Mefarsim, the family. Megala Mishpacha, don't be Megala Mishpacha. So that's why it's an interesting thing, having a register and writing down where does that fit into this? Is it only because it's only behind closed doors? We just said before that even though you're not Megala, the Tamil Chamim kept a record. They told their family. And this, once every 7 years or so. Okay. So that starts the Gemara here. The different names of the Eibishter. We had the shame of Arba Oasis, Yudke Vavke, the shame of 12 Oasis, the shame Mab, 42 Oasis. So Shem ben Arba Oasis, the name of Hashem, 4 letters. We don't say correctly, like we have in Psachim. Once every 7 years, again, whenever we want to do something that we want people to remember, but not to be in the forefront of your mind, so for the most people, the Amcha people, will be forgotten, is either once every Shemitah or twice every Shemitah. He's talking about David's name. It says that this is my name forever, but it's missing the vav. It should be hidden, as if the David's name should be hidden. Rabbi wants in the yeshiva wanted to say how to pronounce the Abish's name correctly, not the way you pronounce it. According to the Kudus, keep it discreet. In fact, one of the versions learning it says, we had more that the Abish gave us Shabbos was a secret. The Abish had the Gnuza, have a Smatana. So it says Beini Yisrael Oisi La'olam Kishesh Yom. So La'olam there is written without above. So the Mashal says, another say La'olam means La'olam. Keep it a secret. This is my thing. Chaim says real pshat. He says we say in the Torah says the reason why you can when one says this is the reason why you keep the Shabbos is because David created one 6 days, the 7th day he rested. So he said this. Beini ben Israel. What Shabbos really between me and the Eden real is? This is a sign, the bond that we have. What do we tell the rest of the world? And we'll say that's not really what Shabbos is. Anyway, Rabbi has a question. See, it says in one pasuk, Zeshmi la'olam. Or see, in another place it says Zichri. This is only my memory. Like, so there's two things: the Shmi and the Zichri. The way you're going to remember me, the way you pronounce me, is different than the way I'm written. Not the way I'm read. Am I written? I'm written with Yud Kei Vav, but how do we pronounce it? V'nikra v'alav daled. The alav daled. Talking about we learned, but it's showing the Shem ben Shnei Mesei Isis. First, the Abish's name was 12 letters. Big Machlek is in the Kabbalah. What the 12 letters are. Simplest one is Yud K Vav K. If you write it out, Yud is Yud Vav Dalet, and K is Hey Yud Hey, and Vav is Vav Yud Vav, and K is Hey Aleph Hey. If you write it out, it's 12 letters. So that's Shem Yud Beis is when you write out the Abish's name completely. So initially, everybody knew the shame. And when the people who did not treat the Kedusha with respect, they only gave it to the people who were discreet, modest, shibikuna. And I only told them about the 12. The 42 letters is from on the Becheach, the same from on the Becheach. And the 12 letters is this, but they only showed it Shnuim. So when during Bichas Koinim they wanted to say the Abel's name of 12 letters, but didn't want others to hear it, the people who are Prutzim. So Mavlim Oisib ben Imas Achem HaKoinim, while the other Koinim were singing whatever it is, they would quietly say the full name of the Abel's. Tanya, we learned, and I once went after my uncle, I went during the Beis HaMikdash. I was in the Beis HaMikdash on the platform, the Hatisi Ozni, and I tilted my ear, Eitza Kohen Gadol, and the Shamati, and I actually heard, the Tarfon was a Kohen, actually brings the beautiful Gemara, that Tarfon went ahead, and it was during a famine. Tarfon was very rich. He married 300 women, so that they're now considered halachically his wife, so he can feed them truma, because they couldn't find regular food. He fed them truma, which is a lot cheaper, in order that they should survive. So from there we know he was a kohen. Actually, we had another place as well where he's a kohen. I heard the kohen gadol saying quietly. Now, why do you say I go after my uncle? He probably wasn't a cut in them because they wouldn't have let him in the first place. So why is he the uncle? Because what in the world? A young man standing at the best spot obviously the best spot on this duchen platform is right next to the Kohen Gadol himself. So he was there because he tagged along with his uncle. Shame ben Abayim V'Shtayim Oises Ein Moisin Oises. The name before the two is from An V'Chayich Ela Misha Tznuah V'Anav. He has to be a tznuah. He has to be humble. He has to be modest, humble. V'Oimed B'Chatzi Yamav lived at least half of his life. What's the idea of living half his life? We actually had Moed Katan that once a person lives most of the years, we said 35 years and a bit, then he can rest assured that he'll be all right. That'll be all right. So therefore, we want somebody who's that means if he behaves a certain way, till 35 and so on, he'll behave this way. He'll continue to behave this way. According to Marsha, actually, that's what Lag Baimer is all about. Lag Baimer, what's it for Yom Tov, is because it's 2/3 of Sfiras HaEmes, so therefore it's roiv, makes a stronger roiv, and we're getting closer to Matan Torah. The Eino Mishtaker doesn't get drunk. He doesn't inebriate himself. He's not somebody that stands resolute on his principles, and he won't be Meichel B'Chalai. And that's all these are the qualities you need to have before we can reveal to you David's name. The B'Chol HaYoidai, the boy. Anybody who talks to those knows it, and he's very, very careful. All the Mila is loved by David, and you're treasured by everyone down here. We have all of these qualities. He's a humble person. They must tell us halabrius, and in fact, he sort of has a certain awe that people have from him. So these are the qualities that a person should have: to be unassuming. And so on. Shmuel said the name of the older person. It was Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel who said that Yisrael is Isa compared to Babel. So now Shmuel is saying the name of an older person that Babel becheskes sheida oimedis. Babel is you automatically you don't have to do any bedikus. Every person who comes from Babel, you can assume that they're kosher. Unless you know for sure that there's a chash mamzed or something in that family. Shara Ratzis, all other countries, if a shidduch comes to a proposal, first thing you have to assume is the problem. Check it out. We'll learn in the next few blocks when you do investigations how far you have to go, how many generations back. Until you know for sure that this family is kosher. What about Yisrael? Moshe lived the puzzle. Moshe the kosher. It doesn't make sense. It's just wrong. How good kashi? I'm the Muslim if you're gonna if the chazak is that is possible, which means hastama. If there's no chazak that they're possible, we'll assume that they're kosher. Then the only time that it's kosher is muhzik kosher. Hastama apostle. What's going on here? I don't know the kashi. Not a kashi. In order to marry a woman in Yisrael, you have to do bdika, not like bubble. You have to check it out. Once you're married already, even if you're married already, you still have to do investigations. And Yisrael, if you're married already, leave it be the way it is. Because the chances that something's wrong is far less, and therefore just leave things the way you are. We don't upset the apple cart. Rabbi says, now this is where it comes from. I was telling you yesterday that it used to be by Rabbonim. If somebody speaks Yiddish, that was a good enough sign. You didn't need more investigations. It comes from the Gemara right here. Anybody who speaks Aramaic, you don't even bother checking him out. Because if he speaks Aramaic, it means he comes from Babel. If he's Babel, then you know that his ethnicity is pure. Or even you ever see like in Sfardim, Radius always is the sign Samach Tes Sfardi Torah. You know that the pure lineage is what it is. So if you spoke Babylonian, that's it. But even the Ikar Amoy today, today already we have all of these conniving people that they feign as if they come from Babel. They learn a little bit of Aramaic, and then that's not a good enough proof that they come from Babel just because they speak the language. Zaidi, like remember Powell spoke Yiddish, therefore it doesn't make him a Yid. Zaidi, have it come and Zaidi, and this is a fascinating thing. Just think about this. Zaidi would avoid Rabbi Yochanan having any conversations other than learning. Why? That have Amalei Nasa Barti. Remember before that a parent has a mitzvah, an obligation to marry off his daughter. This is when they're young. And Rabbi Yochanan thought it'd be a paskah for his daughter was Zaidi, his Talmud. And Zaidi didn't want to marry her. So he would avoid any conversations. You have a cousin who were traveling together. They came to a pool of water. So that he lifted Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Zaidi was a Talmud, lifted Rabbi Yochanan on his shoulders. And they were walking across. Okay, they had a chance to talk. Amalei said Rabbi Yochanan was very upset. Oh, Isaac shade and Bansi like shade. My tail is good enough for you, but my daughter is not. Can you imagine somebody would have a shidduch with Rabbi Yochanan? My daughter is good enough for you. My daitich. What's your sweater? What's the problem? Is it because you think that people from Bavel are good and people that are inferior, and I'm an Israeli, so therefore you don't really know whether I come from a pure lineage or not? Now we learned in this mission. Let me ask you a question. Ought Karni Levi say the coolest? Do you think every Kohen, every Levi, every Yisrael went to Yisrael? No. So just like there was a Kohen left behind, Levine left behind, and left behind, so too Mamzedim were left behind. All the other categories also left behind. So Bavel's not 100% pure either. So why do you think Bavel's any worse? In other words, he learned like a Abaya that they volunteered to leave, but not everybody left. Says the Gemara, he forgot how not sure why the Gemara says he forgot when Abaya knew about it and he disagreed. So Rabbi Yochanan also could have known about this opinion and disagreed. Nevertheless, but Allah. So the bottom line is Rabbi Yochanan said, I don't understand, but obviously Zidi felt that Bavel was superior. He was looking for a Babylonian to marry his daughter, not for his Solika. Ula equal the Pubadisa. Ula was getting Budisa by Rabbi Yehuda to the yeshiva of Rabbi Yehuda. Chazi saw Rabbi Yitzchak Brei Yehudi. So Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, the famous Rabbi Yehuda is the one who said that Bavel is pure. The same Rabbi Yehuda who said that Bavel is pure. He saw that Rabbi Yehuda had a son called Rabbi Yitzchak. The Gadol, he was getting older, and he wasn't married yet. Only my time he said Rabbi Yehuda, you have the Chachai, why aren't you marrying your son off? Remember we had before the Gemara there in the end of the Lamed, early Lamed, that Rabbi Nun is a great man, but when he saw that Rabbi Nun wasn't married, he wasn't talking to him. Malay, so Yehuda says, I don't know which family I can trust. Now the Chayda Rabbi Yehuda is the one who said that Bavel Amar Shmuel is so pure, and yet Yehuda didn't trust his own words. Or he was saying Amo, Bavel was so pure. Because Ezra, but now in Rabbi Yehuda and Shmuel, you talk many hundreds of years later, maybe things are not the same. On Malay, so Ula said back to Rabbi Yehuda, Otonami Yedin Mechazin. Sorry? What do you mean? He didn't trust his own family. He didn't know his own family's good. How's he know? Maybe 100 years ago, some mamza married into the family. That's a vart. Didn't trust himself. So Ula said back to and we, you think we're any better? How do you know you're good? Is that what you say? I know you're good, I'm good. Maybe we come from the family, the Chsiv. It says in the Pasuk, the Necha, that Noshim Betzian Inu, that they went ahead and they basically raped the women. So maybe we come, goyim, and we're born from these incidents. That's not what we're talking about. We're worried about mamzedim. We're worried about these kind of halalim. We're not worried about We're not worried about a goy because at the end of the day, it's kosher. Okay, but wait a second. The dilma mahan d'chsibu. Maybe we come from mamzedis because it says in the pasuk the hasheichim mitashein. They lie on these bed made out of ivory. The suruchim ali and there's a foul, pungent smell on their beds. And what does that mean? What do they do? You're talking about Eden now. And what did they do? Well, but Rabbi Yitzchak said, they walk around the pritzes naked in front of their beds and they're mashed in mayim. They have no, no tznius. It denigrated that. And he said, what are you talking about? Tell me, does that make sense? Let's say they did that. They're guilty of that. It says in the next passage, you'll go in exile. But such a drastic punishment? No. You know what the pasuk is talking about? You have these married couples that are very close and they eat and they drink away. They were attached their beds to each other. And they would, so there's all this adultery going on. So is that what you're worried about? That maybe there's a chash of mamzedim in our family? So maybe we're no better. What can you do? You can only do what you can do. So he said, Sabiru said, no, so what should I do? How do I check out a family if they're good or not? He said, how you know? Ula said, Zil bosish tekusa. The family is quiet. They don't go around accusing everybody else of being terrible people. They're very edel. Like we had in Morivamas there, and the signs of the Morivamas. The three signs of the year, the telltale signs, Rachmanim, Baishanim, that they're edel, then go ahead and that means they're a good family. This is what they checked in Eretz Yisrael. What is that? When two people were having a fight with each other, they would look which one would stop fighting first and be quiet. That guy comes, so they don't say he's miyuchas because the fact is he was fighting. But they said he's miyuchas tvei. Must come at least less chance that there's a flaw in that family than what do you call it? Than the other guy who continues to fight. Because why generally people fight? Because they themselves are no good. So the only way to sort of self-promote is by denigrating and everyone else. So he said, what's the miyuchas of bubble? Look for Eidela family. That should be the best quality that you can find. And then we can assume that they are miyuchasim. The bubble, the people who are quiet in bubble, that's their yichus. Ain't it not so equal? Rab once came lebei bar shafi chala to a person called bar shafi chala. He used to make wine, whatever, and that was his name. Ubodik bahu, and he checked him out. He checked him out means he did investigations. Who did he marry? Who did his mother marry? His Zayda and Baba. No, Moshe said no. My lab yichus. Moshe thinks it's a yichus. He came to check him out. They're an Adela family. What kind of reputation they had? Hachi Kamalu. The Duku Ishaski, Elo Ishaski. That's what he said. Let's investigate. Are they an Adela family or not? Finally, he was saying something with Rav. Even though he spent most years of his life with Rav rather than Shmuel. I guess in that 2 years that he learned by Shmuel, he definitely learned a lot. Even Isa, if you see Shnei Bnei Adam, two people, individuals, that they're fighting each other. Shemetz Posel Yesh Be'echmed. Very interesting. That means one of them has a flaw. The Ein Manichin Oisel Dovik Eche B'Chaveder. And the Abish doesn't want that the other family should ever get married to this family because the other family deserves not to marry into a family of the flaw. The problem is we don't know which one it is. Shmuel said, two families, so according to Rab, even according to Shmuel, only if you see an entire family fighting with another entire family, that's a problem. But if you see two individuals fighting, you can't say, oh, Sashgocha Proti, the Abisha wants them to fight because one of them is no good, one of them is good, and we don't want them to marry. And the Rab says, no, even two individuals. In other words, we see from here, there's a fight. The Abisha made it happen. So everything, what it says in Tanya, everything, somebody hits you, you shouldn't be angry with them because the Abisha, because that's what it says right here. There's a machlekes between two people. The Abisha wanted that to happen so that they shouldn't end up getting married to each other and so on. What do you do within the same family? Every family has one uncle that no one talks to. What do you do within the same family? That here we're talking about fremde people. We don't want families to mix in. We start to go protest of that. Oh, that's good. Okay. The eight o'clock. The 8 o'clock. So how do you attach the hashgach patas? It must be a hashgach patas as well. I'm gonna papa. I'm gonna papa so much made it up. Papa. So okay now. We're going to start doing whole geography here, and I have no idea exactly the map of bubbles, so we're just going to have to imagine this in your mind. I'm going to papa. The papa said, "So much made it Rav." The old papa in the name of Rav. So this is not the same papa we always have because he's saying the name of Rav, and the papa we have is a Talmud of Rav. Much made Rav. Babel. He said like this: that Babel and Bria. Babel is a healthy place. Mishain or Meshain is Mishain. It's a terrible place. They're all mamzedim there, every one of them. Modai Chayla, sick can recover, which means you have some mamzedim there, but most of them are kosher. Elam is Goisesis. Most are mamzedim there. In other words, keep away from these places. Uma ben Chayla Goisen, you refer to Modai as a Chayla, and you refer to Elam as Goises. What's the difference? Most people sick will live, and most people who are Goisim will eventually die. In other words, most people are mamzedim here, only a few people are mamzedim. Adech the bubble. Give me the parameters, the boundaries of bubble. Okay, we're gonna. Rashi says have a machlekes here by the rivers, which way they're flowing, and which way the Gemara is going from south to north and north to south, and we just like to learn. We'll go from north to south. Yes, exactly. And we're still saying that bubble is bria. Bubble is a healthy place. Bubble is bria. Bubble is a healthy place. Meishain, which is near bubble. These are all places near bubble. Yeah, they're not considered part of bubble. Rav says that what Ad Nahar Azik to a place called the River of Azik. That's to what it is. And Shmuel says Ad Nahar Yoni to this river called Yoni, which they all obviously all knew what it was. Le'il, and you go higher than that, Bediglet Ad Heicham. Okay, that's the parameters east and west. What about north? Ad Heicham Ad Bagda. The Avna until this place called Bagna, the Avna, and Shmuel says Ad Mushkani, and Shmuel says till Mushkani. Says he Mushkani is not included in the bubble, just only till there. He said that what that Mushkani is like when it comes to Yuchsin is like bubble. So the Chayda, it is still part of bubble. Ad Mushkani, Umushkani B'chlal, wherever that is. The Tachtis. I'm learning ways I'm being Tam and Faces learn. The Tachtis Bediglat, and if you go south, how far down is bubble? Bediglat Ad Heicha, how far? I'm going to Shmuel Ad Apamya Tata, until this place called Apamya, the lower Apamya, because there were two of them. Tarta Pamya, the Chodi, one above and one below. Chodik Shedu, Chodik Psula. One of them was kosher. The one on top is kosher, and the Chodik, the one bottom is right outside the bubble. Therefore, it is possible. The distance of Chakel to suburbs or whatever it is merely a parsa because Kopia Hadodi, and they were so, I guess, belligerent with each other that I feel mostly Hadodi. They wouldn't have fire. They wouldn't have fire. They wouldn't borrow from each other because they don't have anything with each other. Why? So Rashi says we don't have any kinship, whatever whatsoever. And the simon is the pesulta the mishtai mishayis. You should always remember this. So he said the one that speaks the language of Meshon, because the next to Meshon, they are considered part of bubble. They speak the language of Meshon, they're part of bubble, and those who don't speak it are far away. Le'el beparas ad hecha. Okay, so in Poras, which is Euphrates, until where does it go? Rav says ad Akra the Tubanka, to a place called Akra the Tubanka. Shmuel says ad Gishra, the bridge, the Beit Poras, the famous bridge of Beit Poras. Rabbi Yechon Amar ad Ma'avret the Gizma. Rabbi Yechon says until this place, this bridge of Gizma. Layit Abaya cursed. We came with Rabbi Yosef Adarav, of those people who follow Rav. If I ask in other words, because he made bubble to because he extended bubble too far, and we're trying to make bubble pure. If you go so far, there's no learning over there. The Ramaratzim, and they made a lot of mistakes, and he's upset that Rav included somewhere up there as part of bubble. You're going to ruin the whole thing that we're saying that bubble is superior to everybody else. Says the Gemara. Shmuel goes even further. So why is it Abaye only cursing those who follow Rav? Says the Gemara. It's Chasron wasn't cursing Rav, and Rav lived many years before Abaye. Abaye was saying that in his generation, those people who continue following Rav and treat those cities as part of bubble is a problem. And the Rav like Shmuel, I want to ask a question. Rav cursed and Shmuel didn't curse. And the light at the Rav Choskin and Shmuel. Surely those who follow Shmuel, which is even more north. We both said Lo the Rav light and Shmuel light. Why? Because the Gishu the Beparis the Tatoy have it. It used to be that bridge was much lower. And then what they did was they dismantled the bridge instead of building a new bridge over. They dismantled it and moved it northward. But at the time of the Shmuel, it was south of Rav. But Eden the Levi Pasai today. So what Shmuel said at the time. So if you learn Apshad, I mean the Shmuel, he was talking about even the times of Rabbi Shmuel. With Shmuel at the time, his taka was much lower. He made bubble much smaller, much more constrained. The Potters on this side of the Euphrates, Ad Heicha, how far do we go? How far west do we go? The Euphrates on the west side, and Tigris is on the east side. How far west do we go? Amalei, my daitich, Mishum Beilam, you want to know about the city of Biram, whether it's included or not. I want you to know that all the special people, that the best of the mention of Pumbedisa, they'll definitely marry girls from this place called Biram. So there's no problem. So in other words, it's considered part of bubble. When you say machlek we have regarding yuchsin, what the boundaries of bubble are, the same machlek is regarding gittin. If you remember in gittin, we learned that if you bring a get from overseas to Israel, you have to say before and neftem because they don't aim beking l'shma. We also had ein but aim beking l'shma. But we also then Rav said, but if you come from bubble, right? Now, bubble, there's some tape from bubble. They know the Lishma. So the same boundaries for bubble that we say here regarding Yuchsin is the same boundaries for Lishma. Rabbi Yisrael says Machlek is Liyuchsin. Rabbi Yisrael says Machlek is Liyuchsin. I will get Libra Hakel ad Arbating in the Gisha. Rabbi Yisrael says Machlek is by Yuchsin. But by Gittin, everyone holds the second bridge of Arbating in the Gisha, the second bridge. He says that this city called Chavil Yama, that's the jewel of bubble. That's the main place of bubble. And Shunya Viguvia Tachlit Chavil. Within Chavil Yama, the main place is this place Shunya Guvia. Ravina says Av Tzitsura, also a place called Tzitsura. I hope you know all these places where they are. I have no idea. And Chavil Yama Tachlit the bubble. That's the jewel of bubble. And Shunya Viguvia Tzitsura Tachlit the Chavil Yama. That's the jewel of Chavil Yama. Omar Papa just over here, but now that Kusoyim got mixed in here, we don't trust anymore. So remember, it's not so. Itzu the boy, there's one Kusoy wanted to marry a woman there. The Eden didn't want that their daughter should marry this person. He went around and he maligned that city. He made up a story. Bob Mises. Rashi brings up shot and Teza brings up shot, and they can't believe it, but they both bring yes from Farsi, which means some people learn. That Papa wanted to marry somebody from there, and they felt that Papa wasn't good enough. And he got so angry, so he made up this story. And Tesa finishes off here, he says, the first narrow line. It's impossible that a tzaddik that he would make up a story because he was angry they wouldn't take him for a shidduch. It was not thinking